few minutes early. Our first session kicks off here in just a few minutes. So I am happy to welcome Farra Trompeter and Erin Dresnick. So Farra is the co-director at Big Duck, and she works with developing strong brands and campaigns and communications teams for nonprofits with over 25 years of experience in fundraising and communications. So she is a wealth of knowledge. I cannot wait to hear what she has to say about branding, and as well as her co-host, Erin, who is the Senior Director of Development at Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy with 15 years of working experience in management, fundraising, and communications. So please drop them some love in the chat. We're so happy to welcome them here today. And so welcome. I'm going to give the floor to you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Jenna and Rob, for having us. Fun fact, Rob and I used to be on the board of a group called N10. So, Rob, it's been a minute since I've seen you, but here we are. Thanks again. We live so far from each other, but yet here we are. Uh, Erin is going to share our slides and we're going to set things up. I see from some of the chats, we've got some folks here that I think are probably, joining us at 6 or 7 a.m. their time. We got some folks where it's 10 p.m. Where they are. Rob and Jenna mentioned things are going to be recorded. So, join us as much as you can. Appreciate that people are here with us. So, yeah, here we go. So welcome. We are here talking first and foremost about how you can shape year ends campaigns and Giving Tuesday campaigns to be an experience of your brand, and really how you can use these moments to build relationships that hopefully last year round, not just at year end. So there's been already some chats. If you've just joined, you might not have seen them. Want to invite everybody to just put on a line, who you are. So, for example, Farra, Big Duck, Brooklyn, New York, USA, whatever you feel like sharing. You want to share your organization when you introduce yourself. Just gives us a chance to build community about everyone who is here. So again, if you'd like to chat that out, that'd be great so we can all see. Great. Wow, they're coming in fast and furious. I see Megan from BRAC USA. We've got Stephanie from Sterling Montessori, James Edwards Center, Anna Pause for Patrick. All sorts of great organizations coming through. So keep chatting so we can all get to know each other. Wow, it's amazing. Love seeing this. So yes, I am Farra Trompeter. I use she, her pronouns. I am co-director at Big Duck. I have been here for 17 and a half years. I know that is hard to believe for me. I'm also a member owner. Big Duck is a worker-owned cooperative. I can answer questions about that in the future if they are, but our business is owned by almost a dozen people instead of one. It's very exciting. And if you'd like to connect with Big Duck or with me outside of this presentation, you can find us at those links available on LinkedIn, less so on Twitter and X these days, but there it is. And you can always email me at farra@bigduck.com. As Jenna mentioned, I've been working in the nonprofit sector, either on staff within nonprofit organizations or as consultants to nonprofit organizations for almost 30 years. And I actually got my start in individual donor direct response fundraising, and then got into broader fundraising and communications and branding. So I love thinking about the intersection of fundraising and communications. And we've had the pleasure of working with Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy, I think for 20 or maybe even longer years. So Erin and I have worked together as well as our teams for a long time. And just briefly again, Big Duck, if you're not familiar with us, we are a communications firm that works exclusively with nonprofit organizations, including foundations, government agencies, universities, and we really focus on how we can help you use communications to build relationships and inspire action. And with that, I'd love to introduce my lovely co-host here, Erin.
Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Dresnick. I am Senior Director of Development for Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy. As Jenna alluded to a little bit in the bio, I have been with PPMD for about 6 years, overseeing all of our sort of individual donor engagement, foundation partnerships, strategic development initiatives, all of those things. Prior to that, I had worked in the same space at a different organization for about 9 years. in fundraising, and prior to that in nonprofit communications for about, I don't know, 5 years after that. So I have a journalism degree, and I find that, similar to Farrah's description of how she came to this world, I think that telling a story is really important when it comes to fundraising and development. And I find that there's a great opportunity to position your brand and use those communication skills in the work that I do in development now. So those are all the ways that you can reach me. Email is probably the best, erin@parentprojectmd.org. If you need anything, happy to help. We're all in this together. So PPMD, a little bit about us. We are a not-for-profit. We are the largest patient advocacy organization dedicated to the fight to end Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And we are celebrating our 30th anniversary year in 2024. So we've got a month or two left to do that. And then we end that and we start with 31. So that's what the future brings here. Happy to be here today and talk to all of you.
Yeah, exciting enough. It is both of our 30th anniversaries this year. Big Duck will be rolling out its own 30th anniversary campaign soon. So for today's conversation, we're going to kind of redefine, get aligned around the connection between branding and campaigns. We're going to talk about developing a campaign and sharing an in-depth case study of Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy's year-end campaign from last year. And we're going to share some tips that you can apply and use, and we will try to answer your questions. Feel free to chat your questions as we're going. We'll try to keep an eye on them. But again, we'll leave some time for those at the end as well. And Erin and I will keep an eye on the chat while the other one's speaking. And if there are quick questions we can answer, we will try to do that by chat as well. So I'm going to start by just getting aligned around what branding is. So on the next slide, want to invite folks
Buttons
in.
are sticking.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not even Halloween yet, and the stickiness exists. How do you define branding? You hear that. What's a word or a phrase that comes to mind for you when you hear branding? Branding is blank. I'm just curious for folks, if you feel like chatting in, be sure to chat everyone in the dropdown if you want other folks to see it. Otherwise, we'll just go to us. So Blake has chatted in. Branding is engagement. Kendra says recognition. What else is coming up for folks? Identification, your identity, your public image, consistency, logo, experience, reputation. Yeah, lots of great phrases coming out. And branding can mean lots of different things. Chelsea just said how others perceive you. That is very much part of how we often think about branding too. Your story, your perception, the feelings you evoke. I see Crystal chatted in, your voice. Great. So keep them coming. On the next slide, we want to offer a definition that we at Big Duck use. So we see brand as your organization's identity, and it's really what your audiences encounter, experience, and feel, and the impression that's formed as a result of their experiences with you. So when we think about a brand, we have to start internally. We have to be clear first who we are and define that, be intentional about that, be clear about who we are based on who our organization is, what does our community need from us, what does our strategic plan say we're supposed to be, and then how do we use that to define exactly what many of you have said. What do we want people to think and associate with us? And then how do we define that and build that out with our brand identity and with the everyday communications we do across social media, on our website, at our events, in person in our office, if we have a space, etc. So when we think about what makes a strong nonprofit brand, here's a checklist. I suspect there's nothing deeply new here, but certainly if you have questions, let me know. But first, a nonprofit brand is connected to and is built on a really strong, clear set of vision, mission, and values. Why an organization exists, what it does, and the day-to-day beliefs that guide how it operates. Good nonprofit brands make sense, they resonate, they are guided by clear audience priorities. They are consistent, right? We're using the same colors, the same fonts, but there's a flexibility, particularly ways that you can think about kind of adapting the brand during campaign moments. Good nonprofit brands really are, I often say who you are in your best day. They might be future oriented, what we hope and want people to think about us, but they have to be rooted authentically and genuinely into who you are. A good nonprofit brand is about clarifying, right? There are lots of organizations who do similar things as to what you do. What is the space you own? We've moved away from thinking about other organizations as competitors because other organizations are often your partners and your peers. So, what you're trying to do in branding is just say, this is what people should associate with us, and be really clear about where you fit in the ecosystem of organizations. And finally, some nonprofit brands in particular are really redefining the issues and the areas they work in and creating new narratives, especially if we need to change hearts and minds and associations that people have within the issues that we work with. So at Big Duck, the founder of Big Duck, the former owner who sold Big Duck 3 years ago, Sarah Durham, she wrote a book a little over 10 years ago called Brand Raising that many of us contributed to. And at the heart of the brand raising framework is this idea that, again, everything I've just said, let's start at the top. Let's start with being clear about who we are and where we're going. And from that, derive some understanding around what are the most important goals for our brand, who are the most important people that we really need to engage with, and what do we want those folks to think and feel? Positioning, big idea in my mind, personality, how you make me feel. And when we can clarify that, we can then either shape or update the visuals, the logo, the colors, the typefaces, or the messaging, the name, the tagline, the key ideas you express. And then finally, we think about the day-to-day experience of your brand. So that's how we think about branding in a very quick nutshell. I've just summarized a long book into 30 seconds, but if you're interested, certainly it's worth the read, and we've got lots more related content on our website. So when we think about campaigns, campaigns show up at what we call that experiential level, right? Campaigns are using the day-to-day communications channels, and they are a very specific chance. Campaigns often have a beginning, middle, and an end, and they're a chance to really use our communications to connect with key audiences and reinforce our brand. So, of course, when we are thinking about branding, we always have to be clear about why do we communicate? What are our goals? We often find that nonprofit organizations and NGOs are communicating primarily for these three reasons. They may use different terms, but they are communicating to build relationships with donors, whether that's retaining the ones they have, bringing new ones in. They're communicating to get people to access their resources, participate in programs, or they're communicating to get people to take action on an issue, change hearts and minds, again, drive that narrative change or engagement. And we find communications are obviously often right in the middle of this diagram, but depending on your brand and your moment, you may be leaning toward one area or another. And you can have campaigns that have a central goal around one of these. Often we see having a primary focus is helpful, while you might include elements of others. And in fact, when Erin goes through the case study of the PPMD campaign, obviously at year end, the focus here is fundraising, but offering opportunities for people to do other things and participate in ways beyond just filling out a PayPal or a Venmo form or giving you their credit card is important. And then finally, and I promise we're going to get into the good stuff in the case study in a moment, when we think about campaigns and our communications, they're opportunities, again, to build relationships. And it can be helpful to think about who your different audiences are and where the campaign is fitting in. So this is a framework we use. We call it a ladder of engagement. And the unaware audience is not the general public. Please remove that from a list if you have it. The unaware audience are the people who don't know you but should. Right? The people who would make sense to engage with your organization, they would care about what you do, you have resources for them, you have meaningful ways for them to participate. Those are the unaware folks. Observers are people who know who you are in some way. Maybe they are following you on social media. Maybe they have visited your website. They're on your email list. They've come to one program. They know who you are peripherally, but they have not deeply engaged. The supporters are the people who've done something. In this case, they might be donors, but they could also be activists, your staff, your board members, right? People who've done something with you. And then finally, advocates, right? Advocates are the people who are your ambassadors. They're your biggest fans. They're the ones who are really pushing you. They're deeply engaged with the organization. Instead of wondering, as my unaware friends might, what's in it for me? The advocates are wondering, what can I do for you, right? That's your long-term staff members, your alumni, your board members, your folks. As I've used CauseVox personally, when Rob and I were on the N10 board, your person who's going to set up a fundraising page for you and try to raise money among its community. Now, that's a deep advocate who's willing to take that time and use peer-to-peer fundraising. And sometimes, depending on where you are in a campaign moment, right, as you're thinking about Giving Tuesday and your year-end campaign, you can think about who am I trying to engage? Is this a moment I want to get some observers who's been following us to make a first-time gift and become a supporter? Is this a moment I want to tap into those advocates to bring in new supporters, right? So thinking about all of that. So finally, when we think about campaigns, there's lots of different things campaigns can do for us, right? Obviously, we're talking a lot today, I think, about raising money, but campaigns can do lots of different things, like build relationships in relation to our mission, bring new people in, give an opportunity for supporters to take a different action, amplify our partners, right? We see some organizations will take Giving Tuesday not as a moment to raise money for them, but as a moment to highlight other partners and suggest that you donate to them, right? There's lots of different things we can do at year end in connection to these moments. So we're going to launch a poll. I think Jenna's going to do that for us. We're just curious for now, who is the #1 audience you're thinking of when it comes to your year-end and Giving Tuesday campaign? Are they first-time donors who you're trying to get to join you? Are they people who used to give but haven't? People who've been giving on a monthly or regular basis? Major donors, potential donors or prospects, program participants, or someone else? So who comes to mind for you? Would love to just see. And if you could actually fill, I see some people chatting in, which is great, but there should be a poll that you can see that you'll be able to click on a top choice. And you might have more than one. That's okay. We're just curious to see what comes through. We'll give it about 30 seconds, have some folks respond. And so Jenna, let's see what kind of results we're getting here. All right, so it looks like the biggest number that got the most votes is recurring donors. Really interesting, and I think our next session is about monthly donors. So really thinking about how sometimes you can do a very focused ask around inviting people to become a recurring donor, or you might say recurring donors who you're asking to give an extra gift, people who already are sustainers or monthly donors, and you're asking them to make a special gift at year end. So very interested to see that. Some of you noting first-time donors who you're hoping make a second gift. I saw some comments in. I said major donors, but really it's kind of every donor. I see a question from Bridget. Is year-end an appropriate time to campaign major donors? Yes, but I think thinking about how, right? So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to talk about using mass communications channels, your email, your direct mail, your social media, which major donors will see, but you can go an extra effort to get on the phone with a major donor to send a specific piece that invites them to make a gift. And Erin has lots of great experience with that too. So she can also answer more questions about that as we go. All right, well, thank you everyone for participating in our poll. So I'm going to turn it over to Erin, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about PPMD.
Hi, everybody. So, as Farra mentioned, our brand strategy really focuses on positioning. And I think that's really important. We position ourselves as the strength of the Duchenne community. We are unwavering in our commitment to the Fight for Every Future, which was our campaign last year, and it just rolls right off my tongue. We're powerful, we're honest. We are not telling you something that, we can't stand behind. It's not magic. It's, where we're at with treatments and cures right now. We're inclusive, we are hopeful, we're visionary, and that's how we like to portray ourselves in our communication. as Farra also mentioned, right, this is year end and we are focusing on fundraising. This is our largest individual fundraising initiative of the year. So that's where we, dedicate the majority of our efforts to make it a fundraising strategy. But we are also aware of the fact that everyone is going to see our communication, whether they're going to give us a donation or not. So the importance there is to also strengthen our advocacy, continue to raise the voice of our community at both the national and local levels, and also, continue to raise awareness of our disease and of what the lived experience of Duchenne is for our community members. A lot of people are on our mailing list because they participated in a peer-to-peer campaign, or donated to their friend's marathon page, or they went to an event or golf outing, but they're not necessarily deeply connected to our cause. And even if they're not going to give as a result of receiving one of our messages, hopefully they will learn more about what we're here to do, and maybe next year they will. So branding communication audiences, again, our focus primarily is on our closest partners in this, which is our families, our patients and caregivers. We also engage with our clinicians, legacy families, researchers, public policy organizations, industry groups, clinicians, all of the people that are considered part of our greater community and have a role in that fight. We want to have our messaging resonate with them. But again, our primary audience is generally our families.
So I just want to talk a little bit more, thinking about a campaign framework. These are just 3 quick ways you can think about. Rob mentioned at the beginning. Be sure to note your takeaways. This slide might be helpful for those of you who are sort of in that, like, where do I start? How do I approach building a campaign? Very simple. We like to think about plan, create, evaluate, right? Starting off with research. What did I do last year? What should I do this year? What kind of work do we need funded that our year-end campaign might be good about? What's the theme and big idea we want to come through our campaign? What are we going to call it? What does it look like? Just big picture ideas. And how am I going to approach different communications channels? How many emails will I send? When will I send them? How will I use social, my website, the mail? Am I using peer-to-peer fundraising, etc.? Then we actually get into the creation phase. That's where you're writing and designing all the pieces. You're making sure it all works. And then you're evaluating. Depending on what communications channels you're using, there's some evaluation you want to do during a campaign. For example, you send out a bunch of emails in December and you see the open rates are getting lower and lower, people are unsubscribing, then you need to think about, is there something different you should do with email? Or you're getting good open rates, but no one's clicking. So should we pivot before we get those emails out at year end? So there's some in the moment analysis you can do. And then of course, at the end, you want to make sure that you take time, you get a sense of what happened, what did we learn, what do we want to hold on to and write down now so that we can remember it for our next year-end campaign. And for some of you, you might use your year-end campaign as a launch for year-round communications. And so you might repeat the cycle and consider any evolutions. And when we think about a campaign kind of theme and takeaway, this can be a helpful set of ingredients or recipe we like to suggest, right? What's the big idea we want to make sure people take from this campaign? How do we make sure people kind of buy into it? There's something that they can hold on to, maybe it's compelling or catchy. What is the big information and ideas we want to make sure comes through everything we do? What does it look like? Is there an approach we're going to take to photos and our fonts and our graphics? And finally, what are we going to ask people to do? Assume we're going to ask people to donate. Are there other opportunities, other calls to action we're going to make? So Erin's going to show you how this all came to life in a recent project we did together.
So our 2023 campaign, our goal was the primary fundraising amount of $500,000 by December 31st to provide investment funding to advance next generation gene therapy research so more people can benefit. That sounds like a mouthful and it's complicated. But what we tried to do is we tried to zero in on what that actually means for people. We were in a position where the first gene therapy for Duchenne was just approved prior to this, but it did not include an opportunity for everyone due to some medical reasons why people were not eligible to receive the drug, and also due to access, reimbursement, insurance, all of these, pieces that kind of go into drug development. So we wanted to look at ways that we could fund additional research, do additional work, so that in the future, more people would be eligible to benefit from the benefits of gene therapy. So all that said, we realized that, our investment could be multiple millions of dollars to get this done in the future, but we wanted to create a goal that was tangible and achievable, and something that people could wrap their arms around a little bit more easily. So we settled on $500,000. A secondary goal this year specifically was that we wanted to introduce our 30th anniversary campaign and kickstart that anniversary year with our year-end 2023 campaign. So dual purpose and a little bit more difficult than what we were generally used to, which was very project sort of specific. We looked at our audiences again, core individual supporters, right? These people who are impacted by gene therapy, what it could do for them, what it could do for their family member, if they had been in a trial, if they had received gene therapy, what's next for them. New community members, people who are newly diagnosed, were just learning about us, just seeing our communication for the first time, understanding our brand, understanding what we do. Again, professionals, industry people like that who are part of our sphere of influence. Creative guidelines. We wanted to align the campaign visuals with our anniversary campaign, but also we wanted our fundraising initiative for the year-end appeal to stand alone from what people were going to be seeing, and to understand that we were actually fundraising for a specific project and a specific initiative there. So we had to focus that in text, subgraphics, banner graphics of emails, etc. We used sourced photography. We knew what we were going to do ahead of time, so we had the opportunity to hire a photographer for our annual conference, where we knew we were going to have a good subset of our community there. We identified, individuals who we thought would be good models or representative of our organization. So we did a photo shoot with them. So we would have this, sort of arsenal of creative materials to use throughout the campaign that were representative of our true community and the individuals that we work with. So our 30th anniversary concept was fighting for every future. We realized that, it speaks to all the progress we've made thus far, but as an organization, as a community, we are not there yet. We need to continue to fight for every future. It was inclusive. It was hopeful. It was exciting. And it paves the path for the future. And it was something that we could utilize sort of throughout the year in various ways. So here are some examples. As you can see, we used a lot of our traditional branding, right? Our colors, our fonts, our logo, but we updated that with the 30 and used that throughout the year. We utilized this special sort of script font for every future and have used that in marketing and materials throughout the year. It will probably be retired very soon, much to my chagrin, because I really like what it looks like. But again, it identified these materials as special and as a part of this 30th campaign. Key pictures, right? Again, we launched this 30th anniversary campaign. We used, visuals and specific quotes sourced at our conference. We used the PPMD Every Future hashtag when talking about our fundraising opportunities. And here are just some campaign snaps: web banner, Lightbox, social media.
Erin, actually, I want to jump in. Can you go back
opportunities.
to the
Oh,
Lightbox
sure.
for a sec? Yeah, because I find that a lot of
Lightbox,
organizations,
hold
I know
on.
we're going back the other way.
Sorry, guys.
Keep going back the other way. There we go. A few more back. Sorry to throw you off.
There we go. You got a little
One
bit of
more.
a preview there.
One more.
Okay.
One more.
Nope.
One more
One more.
back.
There we go.
2 more
We're
back.
there.
There we go. All right. So
There's a lot of
Lightbox.
campaigns.
Exactly. There's a lot we're going to show you, but I want to just highlight the Lightbox because I find this continues to be a big source of revenue for PPMD through its online channels for year-end campaigns. And a lot of organizations don't do this. I'll note that if you do a Lightbox, which is basically when you take almost like a little takeover of your homepage or other parts of your website, you don't want to do this forever. It can interfere with search engines finding you. So you want to do this for like a 1 or 2 week key period. One of the nice things about the Lightbox PPMD is set up is that you click 25 or 50 or 100. When you go to the donation page, you're then it carries that donation amount in. And you can see here that this Lightbox also is carrying the messaging and the look and feel of the campaign. So I just want to pause on that because I think the Lightbox is something that not everybody uses, and it's something to think about using in key moments. And I see Melissa chatted in, we used to have people sign up for email or monthly donors. So it's an element to consider. All right, Erin, sorry, back to you.
That's okay. You guys did see a little preview of this already, but here's some social media again. Last year we instituted a thankathon. So we reached out to some key donors ahead of Thanksgiving just to say thank you, to reach out to say hi. This was a script. I could share it if anybody's interested ever. Reach out to me and I can provide this to you. Here are Giving Tuesday messages. See, we were able to incorporate the Giving Tuesday branding heart with our imagery, and it looks like it all sort of goes together. You could see the hashtag up there with the script font. Again, more Giving Tuesday messaging, a thank you post from our social media channels. This is our mail piece that goes home to a select few. We don't send it to our entire mailing list anymore, but more the close friends of the organization. And some more, we have a series of online conversations with our CEO. Her name is Pat, so we've coined these Pat chats. And it's, been met with a lot of well-received feedback. Here are images from our campaign messaging this year. These are our emails. Again, you can see, the photography of various, varying authors. We use the script font, we have them sign it with their signature. I think it's really personal, and it really makes, some nice additions to what could typically get lost among a lot of additional messaging at this time of year from other organizations in your inbox. Thank you. We always, go back to the community with a thank you after the campaign wraps. And results. So how do we do? 2023 saw tremendous growth for us in our online outcomes, which was wonderful. We saw more donors. We saw greater income levels coming in, both in year end and Giving Tuesday. We separate it because of how we code our funding and some of the messaging that goes out there, right? Giving Tuesday is much more sort of general support of the organization, and year end is when we're talking about that specific project or research initiative that we're fundraising for. Direct mail was slightly down. I think people are just giving more online than they used to via check, but we've still got, a few elderly individuals that we would probably lose their donation if we didn't provide them an opportunity to do it through the mail. So we continue to do that, and it's a nice piece for, like I said, some, close friends of the organization to get that card at home. We raised $376,000 from 643 donors, with an average gift of close to $600. So that was, really nice for us. I think it showed that our campaign was well received by our community. Our cost to raise remains very, very low. It's, 8 cents, essentially. Most of those costs are incurred from printing and postage for that card. Our consultants that we, partner with Big Duck on the project, and then, some graphic designers and web designers that we enlist for some of the additional support, because we don't keep that type of support in-house. We just have a communications person. We saw open rates soar and click-throughs improve, which was great for us too, because like I said, there is so much noise out there that we're, always looking for ways to get people to actually read, to actually click on the links, to make that next action when they receive the email, and not just get it, right, or delete it, which would be even worse. The positive theme and focus on gene therapy resonated with our community. It's a hot button topic, like I said. Giving Tuesday, I think in general, saw more sort of excitement across the nonprofit, industry this past year. Our online performed well. We are still, through the years, trying to figure out better ways to engage with Meta and some of the, new options. It seems like every day there's something new you could do on Instagram or with Facebook. So we're looking at that and ways to better engage with social media. Mail, roughly the same. And we did have a match for Giving Tuesday that we called out from a foundation. I think that always serves to inspire, especially if it's someone that is well-known, well-respected. And again, is someone who is a leader that our donors can see themselves supporting, or, someone that they want to follow.
And we're going to share some tips.
Sarah.
Yeah, before we jump into that, Erin, 2 quick questions that we got that I wanted to stay on since it's timely.
Sure.
First, someone asked, do you post your fundraising goal to your donors? I know in years that there have been times where we've said we're trying to raise X for Y. I'm not sure in this year in campaign we stated a public goal. Was there?
If we do generally say what we're trying to achieve in maybe the first message email, but we don't harp on it throughout the campaign. It's not like we're 75% of the way to our goal, help us, get there. We really focus on mass language, or just that we need this for X reason. We use our tagline in our campaign slogan and, some of that messaging much more than we do the campaign goal. Generally, when we're introducing what that project is, we'll say our goal is XYZ. It will help us do this as a result. In certain years, to your point there, when we've had a specific grant that we're funding that is a $700,000 grant, a $2 million grant, we'll say our goal of $500,000 or $400,000 will fund the first year of a 3-year grant for $2 million, or something along those lines. But I hope that helps, but it's not something that we harp on a lot.
Yeah, and some organizations will, depending on, like, it might make sense to say what you're trying to raise.
Yeah.
It definitely makes sense to say what you're trying to raise money for. Sometimes naming that goal. Some organizations will also name a goal of participation. We're trying to, for those of you, like, we're trying to get 100 people to join our monthly donor program, and that, like, they focus on sort of more about participation, or we're trying to attract 1,000 new donors to give to us and be part of our campaign. And it's much more about the spirit of community and engagement than it is that dollar goal. So it kind of depends on what is your communications and what's your vibe the rest of the year. Another quick question, and then we'll get into these tips. Kendra asked, I may have missed it, but when did you start your Giving Tuesday campaign? Right? Because some organizations will do like a month out, save the date, then a week before, hey, Giving Tuesday is coming, then the day before, then the day after. When, I'm trying to remember, do you remember last year or what your plans are this year for how you're going to, when you'll start your Giving Tuesday campaign?
Yeah, sure. So we typically the Tuesday prior to Giving Tuesday, which is generally, right, it's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, usually, or that Monday, sort of just depending where the calendar falls and what else we have kind of happening in our communications calendar, is when we will send that first email and say, everybody, Giving Tuesday is coming, right? 1 week from tomorrow or 1 week from today, you will see a flood of communication regarding Giving Tuesday. Be a part of this empowering opportunity to join a, international fundraising initiative or something along those lines. We also reach out at that point to our fundraisers, right? So people who participate in peer-to-peer fundraising events for us, whether it's our endurance racing program or have participated in like a grassroots event where they've, gone out and done some peer-to-peer fundraising for that event, and asked them to promote Giving Tuesday and continue raising funds for their race, that just passed in November, or, the upcoming race that they're doing in March or whatever it is, if they have an active sort of fundraising page open, to forward some of our messaging, and we send them like scripted information of how to do that and what to say on Giving Tuesday.
Well, I'm mindful that we only have a few more minutes left. So let's jump through some tips because we want to make sure everyone has some takeaways. My first tip here is to think about a campaign story. This can just be a helpful, almost like a 2-sentence brief of what you want your campaign to do. And this is the kind of information you can use to share with your staff, your board, your volunteers, whoever's involved, just so you can have a quick summary. So it's almost like a Mad Lib, fill in the blank. So that may be something that's helpful for all of you to think about. And again, you'll get a copy of these slides. You can see if that's something you want to do.
Again, establish a public goal. We talk about this a lot, but I think the important thing here is to be genuine about it. We want it to be higher enough to inspire people to give, but we also want it to be something that is, achievable, and you can report back and say, we did this, or we're this far, there's still another week to go, or, help us hit our goal kind of thing. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, there's some questions coming in about Giving Tuesday. One thing I would note is that givingtuesday.org, which is the Giving Tuesday hub, has an incredible amount of resources. So for those of you this is your first Giving Tuesday, you're trying to figure it out, they have sample messaging, logos you can use. So if you haven't checked out givingtuesday.org, bookmark that. But I'll come back. So when we think about a campaign, I shared sort of the ingredients for thinking about a campaign, specifically a theme like Fighting for Every Future is really used to be something that you want to create, something that brings people in, that's something that can apply to a few different places, that feels simple and to the point, that you can then unpack in an Instagram post, in an email, etc. That was our last tip. Look at that. I thought we had more. Didn't we have a few more slides, Erin? I think that we jumped a few.
They do jump a little.
Oh, they jumped a lot. There might be a few more tips that we've got. Yeah. I think that's, yeah, we got a few more here.
We've got a lot. There we go.
Next one to you.
So, again, particularly with this year's campaign, because it was for our 30th anniversary, we found ways to utilize that in different programs and different messaging throughout the year. But even in years past where we've had one specific project, we've been able to use that messaging or that sort of campaign element for other things, which is great. We want to diversify the stories that we tell. And I think that this is where it's a shame that the slide is at the end, because I think it's one of the most important things that we actually do. And it is relating back to our mission, but it's finding our community members where they are, right? We want them to feel like they're being seen, and that they're seeing themselves in the communication that's coming out. So we try to highlight a diverse population, both, socially and ethnically, but also manifestation of the disease, age and stage, where they live, are they a board member? Are they a sibling? Are they a parent? What is their motivation for giving? Why did they get involved with PPMC? Why is it important to them? And I think that we hope that each person who opens an email, even if they don't see themselves in the story of the parent, they might see themselves tomorrow in the story of the sibling.
And then when we're thinking about those stories, just to note that it's really important when you're thinking about stories to approach this ethically, to approach this from a place of dignity, to make sure we're not exploiting people, we're avoiding any kind of stereotypical narrative, and we're making sure that that these stories are people are possibly being compensated for sharing their story, and again, they're coming from a place of dignity.
I think that you also need to use language that will resonate with larger audiences. Try to stay away from jargon as much as possible that is specific to your community, because so many more people are going to see these messages on a broad campaign level, particularly with social media and things like that. We want everybody to sort of understand at a very basic level what you're asking for. Integrate creative elements. Again, we've tried to do more of this video photography. People are not spending hours and hours reading anymore. They're looking at, snippets and different things. So we're trying to find ways to at least highlight some of that in a shorter social media post or something like that with a link to the donation page always included. Use their words. We use our sort of journalism skills to interview our authors, and they basically write the story for us. We don't, create quotes for them. We use their words for sure. And again, go where they are. Consider what's happening for them when you're building out your schedule. Look at your calendar. Every year can be a little bit different based on what's happening for your audience. This year, like I said, we're going to end our 30th anniversary with a big event at the end of November, mid-November, which is when we would typically be launching our campaign. We've got Giving Tuesday, Thanksgiving's a week later this year than normal. We've got an election coming up in the beginning of November. So we decided this year to really continue that Fighting for Every Future campaign through Giving Tuesday. Use Thanksgiving as an opportunity to thank everybody for these last 30 years and set us up for the future. And then we will launch our actual campaign in December as well. It also worked out this year that a generous donor gave us a $30,000 gift for our match for Giving Tuesday. So it really kind of wrapped up the story narrative for us without even trying. So it was perfect.
So we don't have any time for other questions. I chatted out our email addresses. There's lots of resources in the deck. But before we turn it over to Chris, your next speaker, would love to invite people, this is Rob mentioned this in the beginning, chat in one new thing that's coming up to you as a result of this conversation that you want to try for your 2024 year-end campaign, something you're thinking about, whether it's for Giving Tuesday or year-end. Be sure to chat it to everyone so people can benefit from your tips. And again, a note too, right? This is a tricky year. We're following an election. Giving Tuesdays in December. You've got, if you're connected to do communications and messaging around holidays, I think both Christmas and New Year's Eve fall on a Saturday or something. So there's a lot happening. I think Hanukkah is the same time as Christmas. Kwanzaa's right out. Like there's just a lot happening. So thinking about that timing is important. I see lots of people saying they want to try a light box. A few folks talking about doing distinct voices across channels, creating a strong story, trying the thankathon. That's great to see. We also have a script that you can use for donor engagement. I'll put that in the chat as well. And Erin mentioned she can share her script, and a lot of it I think is actually caught on the slide itself. So glad to hear these ideas. Again, if you want to connect with Erin and I after today, I'll re-chat out our email addresses. Thank you to Jenna and Rob and Cosvox for having us. And we have lots more resources in these slides, so you'll get a copy of those that Jenna will send out. So thank you. We'll stop sharing our screen and we will go off camera and turn it back over to Jenna.